Have you ever wondered why your content on IG may not be hitting, even though you're putting a lot of effort into it? You think that the messages you're putting out are good messages, but people just aren't responding. Well, if so, this episode is for you. This is a hot seat call with Radislav and my mentorship, and what he was doing, is not doing anymore, was one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make on IG, where they're creating content based off of the stuff that they want to create that's super helpful, but they're not actually communicating to other people why it's helpful for those other people. And so what I do is I walk through ideation, I walk through how to get stories with him, and it's made a big impact on his content, and I think that it might make a big impact on yours as well. So have a listen, and I'll be back at the end to recommend another episode. Radislav, thank you for your patience, dude. Where are you? Gotta unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go. You got it. You're better at
Hey,
technology than I am. Cool. Well, I got
yeah,
your forum, so I know what you want to talk about and stuff. But why don't you, for everybody else, just kind of introduce yourself, talk about who you are, what you do, real quick, and then what you want to talk about. And we'll get into it.
uh, I I am a business owner. I have my own gym with a team of other three coaches. We go mostly into mobility, flexibility, and strength, like overall, like pretty mixed up. I teach people skills, different skills like gymnastic skills or flexibility skills, and also do a lot with pain. I mean, it naturally, the niche naturally found me, and I've been getting a lot of clients like that. So it's an easy win on the referral side because my business has been growing mostly on referrals. Because
Mm-hmm.
like locally, I'm pretty well known, and I have a huge networks in different areas with people. So even with like medical professionals, so they send me people all the time. So on the offline, it's been doing really good. I started with the training program, the OTM, in June. Since then, I've been doing okay, but I haven't been really pushing it because I wanted to set up a structure, a good
Yep.
foundation to be able to scale and know I can handle the workload. So far, because I work like 8 to 10 hours a day on the floor, plus online, plus managing the team and all that. I have two kids. You know how it is, and I've signed like about 20 people. A couple have signed off, but I've signed like 20 people for the online. I I get like 2 to 3 new people per week, I guess. And I was talking about the foundation, I've gotten two other coaches on board for helping me out in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So now as I get more into the sales part and more into the content creation part and start converting more people, I'll have the process of me converting them and then just like offsetting it to the other coaches to
Right.
do the programming.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
that's me.
what are we chatting about today then?
So in regards to, I mean, I'm also interested into growing some audience outside of Instagram. Instagram is great, but I don't want to be like too dependent on one medium.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike yourself, I mean, I don't have like things like books. I mean, I started the podcast a couple of years ago, but I haven't been very consistent on it. So I was interested, just the last thing you know, in you said about you trying to bring people onto your podcast. In your case, or what's your idea with converting people into any offer or product that you have through the podcast? Like, is it doable in the long run if you focus on growing a podcast and then selling people stuff or coaching services and things like that? Or
Podcasting is podcasts are uh podcasts are the hardest medium to grow,
mm,
unquestionably. They take the most amount of time, they grow the slowest. Because if you think about it, there's basically no discovery mechanism. Spotify, Apple iTunes Store, like they're not going to help you. Like there's no discovery mechanism. And somebody has to listen for 30 minutes or an hour before they decide whether it's good. There's no like sample really where they can do it. I mean, there's maybe like a trailer, but there's no sample really where people can share it. So they're an unbelievably difficult medium to grow on their own. I restarted my podcast about a year ago now. We're like 110 episodes in, whatever that is, twice a week. And but I decided that I was going to spend a year growing an audience somewhere else first before I started a podcast. And then I was going to systematically shift that audience to the podcast, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because like you grew your Instagram like hugely before you started pushing into the podcast.
Yeah, because Instagram, it's just Instagram, there's a discovery mechanism. Instagram, you can build an audience quicker and faster. It's a much looser audience. It's a much less valuable audience. A podcast audience is so here's what I say about this, right? And I'm not the only person to say this. This is pretty well established. Podcasts are the hardest to grow, but the most valuable to have. There is no better and no more valuable audience, I think, in the world than having a popular podcast. Not YouTube, not anything like that. Because if you think about the consumption habits, you're with somebody multiple hours a week in their ears, going directly into their brain. You're talking to them like a friend would talk to them. YouTube, you're a television show, right? Somebody's watching you. Somebody might be watching you distracted doing something else. A podcast, they're taking with you on their day. There's so much subconscious selling that goes in there, trust that gets established with it. So for anybody who has the capacity, I think a podcast is an unbelievable platform to work to grow. Greg, I know you're working hard on that, but it's not something that's going to get you customers today. Nothing close to it. And if you don't have an audience somewhere else, you either need to make yours into an interview podcast and know that it's also going to take a long time because the majority of people are going to be going there for the people you're interviewing and not for you. Or you need to build your audience somewhere else. And you could be podcasting at the same time just to get better at podcasting, but you can't look at the numbers and the stats and the growth. Like it's going to be so slow.
Can't
like I don't look at podcast numbers and growth. We had somebody who wanted to sponsor it and they wanted to know our downloads and stuff like that. And so I connected Amber to them via email and I was like, Amber, don't CC me on the response. I don't want to know how many downloads we have. It's so completely irrelevant. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? Like,
that was a side note because I was listening to you talking about the podcast and like you shifting people there and going back to Instagram. I'm
also trying to build like an author expert platform, right? Like I'm not. If my priority right now was to build this mentorship and get as many people into this mentorship as possible, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I could be much more effective at that. So, my example, it's like, what an expert, if there's an expert who tells you to do something that they're not doing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should distrust their advice. It just means that they understand the rules of engagement and they've decided for their goals that one way is right, for your goals a different way is right. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with either of those. So what I'm trying to do is largely different than what many, if not all of you are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to Instagram, I have this one issue. When I started the account and I grew it to like a decent number, in the beginning, most of my followers, because I'm bilingual, my native tongue is Bulgarian, so I have like mixed following of local of locals and international.
Yep.
But in the beginning, there was more engagement from the international audience, and then over time, like the local audience took over. And now, if I look at the engagement on likes, comments, on stories, especially, like I see prevalence on the local audience. However, not that I'm not happy with converting locals into online clients, but just because of like what I can charge locally and what I can charge
Right.
internationally, I'm looking to kind of like get more international clients.
Right.
And what would be a best way to bring back the engagement or some following for from the international? Because I know the algorithm. I think I heard it somewhere. If more locals follow your content, it's going to be pushed more into the locals and not into the international. So is there anything like that, or how I can go about that is something I've been wondering about.
I mean, what the algorithm wants and doesn't want, I can't even tell you. I could tell you what
Mm,
humans want and don't want.
yeah.
You
Okay.
know, social media works off of what's called nodes of connection, and so it's not that it's like, oh, there's locals following it, so we're going to show it to more locals. It's that the people who are following and engaging with you are connected to other people who are probably more local,
Mm,
and so it just follows those nodes of connection.
hmm.
That's really the extent that you need to know of it. I mean, the biggest thing that I see with your account is like, you're not telling me why I want to do these things,
What do you
right?
mean?
Like
Like,
get better
like
shoulders. Why? Why do I want to get better shoulders? What
also
do I want to
you're
do?
so you're saying that the hook should be stronger in the beginning.
Yeah, like what do I want to do? Why do I want to do a back bend?
Okay.
Why do I want to use a kettlebell for mobility? Like for people who aren't already sold on what you do, which is the majority of people, because
Mm.
just how many customers have you worked with ever? And you have 9,600 followers. So by definition, the majority of them don't really know what you do yet.
Mm.
They have no idea like why is this important for them in their life? Who are they? And they don't need to be one person necessarily, but like, for example, wings routine for shoulder mobility. Like, you want to know why that's important to me? How old are you kids? I saw one of them super cute with you at the beginning. How old are your
Yeah,
kids?
one is 2.5 and the other one is 8.5.
8.5, boy or girl?
Both are boys.
So those maniacs are probably jumping on you like crazy, aren't they?
Yeah,
And you don't
all
want
the
to
time.
snap your shit up because you're not flexible enough when they're jumping and pulling on your arms, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty damn good reason to do a shoulder mobility with wings.
Should I use that? Should I use that
Hell
convincing
yes.
into the no into the caption, or how do I integrate it into a short video like
Show
that?
your
Like,
show your 8-year-old maniac kid jumping on you and pulling on your arm.
okay.
And then you look straight at the camera and you'd be like, you want to know why this isn't snapping my shit up? Because I do this. And
Yeah.
then you show your
Okay.
wing routine.
Okay.
Tell me how I know. Because I've got a maniac 6-year-old who does the same thing. Like, this kid just jumps on us out of nowhere. Like, if we weren't strong, I'd have thrown out my back many times over by now. Because
Yeah,
my
because
kid's a maniac.
I have a client who had two herniated discs because she was trying to save her kid from breaking her head or something like that. Just like quick snap, and then yeah, it's
Tell me
relevant
that
for life for sure.
story, man. Oh my God, tell me that story. Like,
Yeah, she was yeah.
don't show her,
Mm,
but take a stock image of somebody who is like a back injury
mm,
and show it and have it like fading out with like sad music and be like, this is how this happened to a client of mine.
okay.
And then here's what we did. Here's what we're doing to help her. Um, kettlebells for mobility, like what swing your kid around.
Mm,
Like, hey, I go to the park and all the other dads are sitting down on their phones looking tired, and I'm sitting there swinging my kid. and then their kids come over and want to be swung, and all of a sudden now I'm swinging the kids back and forth. Here's what I
Mm,
do in the gym to make sure that I'm that dad at the park.
mm. Yeah, I do actually like that personalization and that like involving like the family stuff. Like I that's why because like just posting like rigid content like this sometimes might push people away, as you say. That's why sometimes in my stories like I do post stuff like family stuff just like you do, because I do believe that we're human first and then professional second.
Yeah.
So that's
It's who
that's
you
like a
are, right?
yeah, it's a good idea. Like I keep telling this to clients that they want to be functional with in their lives and not just train for the sake of training. But yeah, just like I haven't thought about like just uh turning it into videos and content this way.
Yeah, like you got like you're doing dips with what is that, 20 kilos?
Yeah.
It's probably about the weight of, well, your 8-year-old might be a bit more than that, but
Mm.
I
The
mean, have
problem
like do this with like a kid on your back.
the problem would be for them to just like hang on for 2 seconds while I do this. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily all have to be about the kid. I guess my point
Yeah, yeah,
is with
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
of these, like anytime you're like, hey, I want to show the shoulder, because you're with clients so often,
Yeah.
it's got to be like infinite ideas. Like every time you do a routine for your client, or whenever you're with clients, like have a page on the back of your clipboard and just write down like a shoulder mobility routine. And
Mm,
then when you go home or when you have a break at the gym or anything like that, you think about, you're like, okay, why are people going to care about this? Why does this matter? Is the question that I always ask. Why does this matter? And I mean, I don't know the answer for all of these, like back bends. I don't know. Like, why does this matter? Like
it,
sex
it,
stuff?
it,
Like, I don't know.
Uh, it's just a skill, and it's not just pain related. What I do sometimes it's just like skill work like this. People are finding me for being able
What?
to get more flexible. So
Yeah, like this is pretty cool. Jesus. Jesus. What is your body doing? Uh God damn, man. So that's pretty impressive.
exorcism.
It is a little bit, yeah. That would actually be funny. Is like put like the Exorcist like video in the background of you doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and going back to the fun part, I've noticed that because I have like an open Facebook group for my local following,
Yeah.
and I noticed that when I post some like educational content, the engagement is not almost like non-existent. And then when I post funny stuff like memes and stuff, but if
Yeah.
it's like funny stuff related to training, yeah, that might grow the account for sure. But how relevant will the following be in terms of like serious leads?
I mean, if you do like kind of what Joe did just before, right? Like it's still relevant to what he talks about. It's not just funny
Mm,
stuff for the sake of funny stuff. I think you lose some relevance, but I think you grow big enough that losing a little bit of the direct relevance and conversion is maybe not the end of the world. Like at some point, you
mm,
just need to get new people in there, and then you can really educate them. It's
mm,
that's like top of the funnel versus middle of the funnel type stuff.
mm,
Top of the funnel is always going to be superficial. It's always going to be, uh, call it infotainment. Like it's always going to edge more towards sort of entertainment, and then as they get deeper, it's going to go more towards information education. But I think you can. I mean, I don't think everyone has to be funny, but like if you're doing backbends like that, where my first reaction is like Jesus, then yeah, man. Like you said yourself, you're like exorcism. Like just there's a book that I read a long time ago that I think it's a wonderful book if you want to write. But it's Stephen King on writing. But one of the
mm,
pieces of advice that he gives in there is, if you ever want to say something in your writing, if you ever think of something that's like funny or creative or analogous to whatever you're saying, he says, say it, put it in the first draft. Don't even think about it. You could always take it out when you go and edit the thing, but in almost every case you won't, because it's going to be better than everything else you do afterwards.
Mm.
The minute that you see that, you're like, yeah, exorcism. You're like, exorcist, that's hilarious. And just put it in. Like, A, it's one piece of content, so what's the worst that can happen? But also, that's you, man. Nobody's gonna buy from you on the internet because you showed a shoulder drill. Sorry.
Mm.
There's people who are better looking than you. There's people who are better looking than me. There's people who are more flexible than you. There's people who are more flexible than me and stronger and more ripped and are better at marketing than both of us, than all of us put
Mm.
together, like that are showing shoulder drills. Nobody's going to buy from you because you showed a shoulder drill.
Mm.
Who are you? Right? Let that fly. And if you have any, so that question of why does this matter? Well, it could be, why does this matter to me? Because that's also why it's going to matter to other people. But it could also just be like, why is this funny? Like, I do this weird stuff that a lot of people think is weird. Like, let's play on that.
Okay. Yeah, two ways to go about that.
Yeah.
One is like the emotional connection about the outcome that people are looking for, and then and entangling this with like my personality and my life and why I do stuff. And I pretty much do it for the same reason: longevity, family stuff, being active outside the gym.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely makes sense.
Do you know
And the point.
this guy? See if it pops up. Yeah, here, Amir. I've chatted with him a bunch of times. Do you know his stuff? He has 1 million
Who's that?
followers now. Jesus.
Yeah. I know the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so look at the kind of stuff that he does. Like, it's just like one of my favorite ones that he does is like what happens if, even just like, right? Here's a
Yeah.
perfect idea.
Yeah.
So you can do stuff like that. I mean, it's not even anything that he did. My favorite are the ones where he does it, where it's just like, what?
If we live like we train,
Yeah,
those type of things.
those are
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah, these. If we live life how we train, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, he's making the same kind of points.
Yeah.
But he's doing it in a really, really effective way.
Yeah, I guess it's just like at one point it gets like more natural to be creative like this once you've done it a few hundred times like he has.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to do it for a long time. Like when I discovered him, he had, 300,000 or something. I haven't looked at his account for a while. But even if you look at like, so he has 1 million followers, but still, like if he puts anything that's promotional, 600 likes, 16 comments, right? Like he still gets 0 engagement on anything promotional. Like that's just the internet. That's just Instagram. So this is a guy with 1 million followers that are like real engaged followers. And it's still his promo stuff superficially doesn't get any engagement. Like this has 396 likes. He has 1 million followers. What's the engagement percentage on that?
Yeah.
Right. But that's fine because he runs a business.
Yeah. And I'm sure. I mean, even if he doesn't get engagement on the post, he gets a lot of like messages, DMs and stuff like.
He might.
So.
Yeah, I don't know enough about his business. We just shoot the shit most of the time, so I don't know enough about his business to really know. Cool, man. Does that give you some direction, some sort of ideas with stuff too?
Definitely, because like this is something that's more authentic to me, as you said, and who I am, and I want to. That's why I've been being hesitant on creating content that's rigid like that, because it feels robotic a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel natural for sure.
cool.
So That's one. Do I have a little more time because I have one more question?
Um, Let me just answer. Is it good to have two separate accounts for two different countries? I live in Scotland and can speak Turkish. Nah, man.
Yeah, I can't do that. Like even from the like time management and content creation,
Yeah,
managing both
one
accounts, like
one
it's
account is hard enough. One
yeah.
account is hard enough. Choose. I think there's opportunity in both.
Mm,
Um, I think there's probably more opportunity in foreign markets like Turkish markets, but you also may not be able to charge quite as much. So
mm,
if you want to work for more like a volume play, you'd
mm.
go for like a Turkish market, or in your case, Radislav, like a Bulgarian market. But if you're going for more of a premium play, you kind of got to go for an English or a French or a Spanish speaking market.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, real quick. I do have to run because I have another call, but I'm happy to go for another minute or two.
Yeah, about the book stuff, like, cause like I'm in the process of starting to write a book for myself, like with the shared stuff that I already teach with other coaches
Mm-hmm.
coming to me, laid out for clients as well. So in regards to the book, like what's your process of like um promoting the book, and then just a few quick steps. I mean, it doesn't have to be too long. To promoting the book, and then how do you, except for the just monetizing from the book, if any, how do you optimize the leads and
Let's do a
emails and
whole
stuff like
separate
that?
call on this.
Okay, okay,
This is not even an hour conversation.
okay,
This is a 2 day conversation.
okay.
Let's do a whole separate call on this.
Yeah, because again, I want to set a good foundation to when
Yeah.
I have the book ready, like launch it
I
properly.
will send you a recording. Is anybody else interested in it? I can send it. I can put it in the group, but I can send you a recording. Okay, I'll put it in the group of a call that I did with a couple friends. Now it's a few years ago, but it's about book publishing and what to do beforehand and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Um, but I think this is worth like
Okay.
its own call where I can share a lot of the stuff, a lot of the ways that I think about it, and a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. I mean, I have a 15-month marketing cycle for this next
Mm,
book that's coming out. Probably
okay.
more. It'll probably be closer to a 2 year marketing cycle. And that's before the book comes out. And that doesn't include the engineering of the book itself to self propagate. And that doesn't include marketing the book after it's out, which will be another
Mm,
2 to 3 years minimum.
mm,
So, like, I think if you write a book, you should be committing to 5 years,
okay.
or don't write a book because writing a book's really hard.
Okay.
Um, but if you want to do it, it can be life changing, but
Mm.
uh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that link in the group for you then. I'll tag you specific, but I'll put it in the group for everybody else.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. Hey, John, back again real quick. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Radislav. You know, the way that you'd have to think through your content has to be from the reader's perspective. What are they thinking? What do they want to gain? Why are they specifically going to connect with this and not all of the other noise that's online? And I hope that this helped you. Now, this was a hot seat in my mentorship. This is my high-end mentorship. If you're interested in up-leveling, upskilling, scaling your online fitness business, please go on Instagram. I'm at It's Coach Goodman. Send me a DM that just says mentor. Now, if you're looking for another episode to listen to right now, I'm going to recommend you check out episode 70. This is called Near Psychic Industry Predictions. This is actually a live recording of a talk I gave at an event. And one of the main questions that they asked me was, how does it always seem like you've been able to stay ahead of trends and be able to consistently grow for a decade plus in this industry? And well, I answer it in that interview, in that talk that I gave. So hope that you enjoy that. That's episode 70, Near Psychic Industry Predictions. Have a listen. We'll talk again soon.